I don't know, guys. They said this game was like Zelda, but what makes a Zelda game? Oh, there it is. We're all just gonna have to accept it. Video game genres are a joke. There is too much cross-pollination, too much experimentation, and so it is that saying a game is like another game is way easier than trying to explain what it actually is. And isn't that just the greatest? We live in a world where every game is a type of game with elements from another game and a different game aesthetic. For some reason, that equates to a lot of fishing horror games. But Minishoot Adventures is no horror game. It is in fact the opposite of horror. It is wonder, it is charm, it is straight up one of the most fun games I've ever played. As a solo video creator balancing a real job, I don't have time to bring bad games to your attention, but this is one of the few times I've been able to bring you a game I simply could not put down. This game is just so well planned and so well executed that it refuses to be left alone. It's like an adorable husky who's already had 7 outings, but you just can't refuse another when you see those puppy dog eyes. So grab your shoes, grab your coat, time to take this dog for a walk. Welcome to the Crystal World. Chief exports are gems, pineapples, and bullets. Evolution happened a bit differently here, as every lifeform is some variation on the ship from Galaga. But they are alive, and they are people with jobs and personalities. They've also got a problem. Namely that an evil shipling, that's what they are by the way, shiplings, called the Unchosen has returned and is wreaking havoc on the world, and wouldn't you know it, we're the first victim. We don't really have a name. The primordial spirit in charge of exposition and quest calls us Little One and My Child, and we're supposed to pretend that we're not patronized. Which is fine. We'll be referring to ourselves as Dwayne from here on out though. We break out of our prison, head through an excellent tutorial level, and emerge from underground into the sunlight. By the way, this is an ideal way to do a tutorial. Once you know how to move and shoot, it gets out of your way and lets you figure everything else out on your own. There is no way to get lost. You could, in theory, die, and if you do, I'm sorry, but you're being judged right now. Every new ability gets the same treatment, so learning is based on experimentation, not on guidance, which is always a better and more fun way to learn. Unfortunately for Dwayne, the first thing he learns is that his hometown is now in ruins and all his friends are MIA. All except this fellow trapped in the same crystal you were. Thankfully, we have the perfect tool for a delicate extraction process. So what we have here is the game loop condensed. You arrive in a new area, you explore, you reach a goal. This is what you will be doing for the whole game, so if you had fun with the tutorial, you're going to have fun from here on out. After emerging, the guiding spirit is quiet. Your new friend, who it turns out is the gunsmith, gives you your only clue. For 5 pineapple slices, he'll upgrade your weapon. It's not much. In fact, it's not a direction at all. This isn't telling you where to go, it's telling you when to come back. So, where do you go? The answer is anywhere you want. This game is huge on exploration. While there is gated progress to keep you from getting overwhelmed, the freedom of choice is just exquisite. 5 pineapples. Where do I find 5 pineapples? And for the record, I know they're not pineapples, but come on, tell me I'm wrong. So maybe you look in a forest. Maybe you find a lake. Maybe you look for something else to shoot. Oh hey, that looks like a button. And that looks like a bridge. And that looks a lot slower than me. Well, this is scenic. Is it just me or does that shrub look suspicious? Is that the ocean? Ooh, coconuts. Okay bro, just warning you, I shoot back. Since when is it autumn? Since when is this a racing game? I'm glad these guys aren't around anymore. I am become death. Oh hey, pineapple slices. Now I can get back to where am I? Moments like this make me thank the stars that Soul Game didn't make this a roguelike. The subtle joy of getting lost in a game is, well, better described by Pixeladay and Daryl Talks Games, links below, but suffice to say there is something very special about being caught out in unfriendly territory with no clear way back and having to use your wits and skill to get back to safety. The overworld of Minishoot is riddled with tunnels, sinkholes, and shortcuts. Hell, some of the hidden paths have hidden paths, some of which are one-way trips. These are not marked. If you wander into a cave and cross a threshold, there may be no way to reverse course and you may not survive the trip back. And of course, that is so much fun. Especially when you make it by just a hair's breadth, bringing home all the treasure you found in your adventure. That is what Minishoot does so well. It sends you on an adventure. And there is no adventure if there is no risk. If you're never thrown into a river, how can you prove that you can swim it? And those rewards are all worthwhile, by the way. All but 5 collectibles bring something tangible to the game, things like dodge or extra damage when at low health, or just longer speed boosts. It really helps spur that motivation to check every nook and cranny since everything you find makes you stronger in some way. The leveling is also a lot of fun. Each level gets you a new crystal, and those crystals are slotted to enhance your abilities. You can adjust these to alter Dwayne's stats on the fly to fit the encounter. It's not a big part, and I wouldn't go so far as to call these builds, but there were times I preferred to have range over power or speed. I also like how the experience bar is just a bin you drop crystals into until it's full. It's not really relevant, I just had nowhere else in the video to put that. But you know what? All this talk about getting lost and power-ups demands we know why we're doing this, so let's step into spoiler territory for a minute. Skip to this timestamp if you want to avoid spoilers. When everyone's native language is ringtone, putting the narrative together is a bit of a challenge. This is like decoding a silent film without the benefit of caption cards. There is some text, the primordial spirit speaks to you directly, and there are ancient tablets which can be decrypted to give you backstory, but for the most part, the storytelling is either environmental or inferred from the shiplings' emotes. And speaking of the shiplings, they are the most charming bunch of mutes I've ever had the pleasure of interacting with. Whenever you rescue one of your little friends, they take up a spot in the ruins of the town square. The gunsmith is first, but soon enough you'll be joined by a shopkeeper, an archaeologist, a bard, and they only ever communicate through the beeps and spins and the occasional sweat drop. The same goes for Dwayne, who punctuates every good happening with a quick spin and a delighted beep. These happen for level ups and new acquisitions, but he's also prone to doing it just when he's having fun. Like when he's on a racetrack and pulls off several jumps in a row, a reaction that perfectly mirrors mine. But not all is happy and good in the Crystal world, so who is the Unchosen? Well, for all intents and purposes, he's the Ganondorf to Dwayne's Link. And that's really all you need to know right now. I know it's unlike me to leave big story elements out of the spoiler section, but there isn't actually much of a plot twist to figure out. Don't mistake that for the story being bad, it's more that, well, with such limited verbiage and reliance on the environment, there isn't a ton of complexity that can be expressed. So while the story and characters are interesting, they're also fairly straightforward. But I do want to bring up one moment that made me sit back. So there are 4 bosses to take down before you can face the Unchosen, but you don't actually fight the 4th one. After navigating a ruined city in the middle of a polluted lake, a trip that has its own boss fight, you finally enter the 4th dungeon. The last boss who must be taken down to unlock the Unchosen's gate. And it's already dead. The way you run through this is cinematic. First, the camera zooms in as you approach a lone shipling corpse with 3 boost flowers blooming around it. Then as you fly past, the camera zooms back out to encompass this. Forget Zelda, this monster looks straight out of Hollow Knight, though if that were the case, he'd only be an inch tall. I kept waiting for something to jump out at me, for the real fight to start. This wouldn't be the first time Minishoot put a collectible out in the open only to ambush me at the last second. But no, collecting the token was simple and weirdly anticlimactic. So I left. Then I spun around and went back in because I realized what this meant. The boss is actually dead. The fight happened. It just wasn't your fight. Dwayne was frozen in crystal at the start of the Unchosen's attack. By the time he wakes up, the world is in ruins. How long was he there for? We're not told, but it's long enough for the fires to die down and the wilds to grow up. This shipling fought the boss and won at the cost of his own life. This raises so many questions. When Dwayne was frozen, he was on the surface. Who moved him below ground? How long were his friends free before they got frozen? How long has it been since he was frozen? Is Dwayne even the first hero to be chosen? We don't ever get answers to these questions, but having this moment, this seeming anticlimax, adds depth to a narrative which is, admittedly, a bit simple. I will always wonder who that shipling was, and what brought that fight to bear. And on that note, let's get back to the main video. Anyways, that's how Roombas came to dominate the world. Welcome back. So, characterization and puzzle solving are minimal in Minishoot. Longtime viewers know that these are 2 of my favorite things. So for Minishoot to earn such high praise, it has to be doing something really, really well. That is, of course, the combat. Blending 2 genres is tricky business. You risk losing something critical when 2 components are in conflict. Doing so successfully requires great care and ingenuity. So how does Minishoot combine a Zelda-style action-adventure with the bullet hell of Enter the Gungeon? Well, it turns out these 2 go pretty well together, actually. Enemies in Minishoot come in multiple varieties, and with at least 3 ranks. Increasing ranks increases their health, alters their bullet pattern, and sometimes increases damage done. No two enemies are alike. Some robotically patrol the arena dishing out bullets as they go, some draw a bead on you like a sniper firing shots directly at you, others might not have bullets at all, relying on fast movement and collision damage to get you. It's where these goons combine that the real effort comes into play. While you have a dash, you don't have invincibility frames, so either get your maneuvering in order or get your affairs in order. There are a couple of oh shit buttons in case you find yourself in a no-win scenario, but they have a long recharge, so your best bet is to avoid getting cornered. Sometimes, the closer you are to danger, the farther you are from harm. Also, most enemies react in some way to your movements, so dodging one can put you in another's line of fire. Avoiding one bullet pattern can directly cause a different, potentially worse one. I'm not sure I would call the combat strategic, but prioritizing targets will help you get through it. Though, how do you prioritize? Do you take out the high-level enemy rocking double damage? What about the low-level enemies who can't shoot, but there's a dozen of them? What about the snipers targeting you directly? Naturally, encounters become easier as you whittle down the enemies, but figuring out how to do that without getting riddled with holes requires fast thinking under pressure. And what about the bosses? Well, they follow the usual trope. They're big and have a lot of health and multiple phases, often 5 or more phases by the way. In the tradition of bullet hell bosses, they start out seeming hard, some of them nigh impossible, but once you know how to handle each phase, a no-hit win is completely feasible. So paradoxically, some regular enemy encounters are more tense than boss fights due to their unpredictable nature. Then again, if the boss fights had that level of unpredictability, I might have a new broken controller. Also, I'm a big fan of the way bosses have battle damage, with each phase looking a little more cracked and a bit more desperate to destroy you. Being an RPG, Dwayne can keep growing stronger. You could, in theory, grind to maximum level just on starting area enemies, but that would be really boring. The rule of thumb here is, if you can't handle this, try something else and come back later. Which you will. Power is a reward for achievement, not the key to it. I spent 12 hours blazing through Minishoot Adventure's normal difficulty, most of it on the same day. I tried hard difficulty once to get some video footage and died pretty quickly, which as expected made me want to go in and try again. That's excellent game design. Minishoot is a masterpiece of a title that never stops being engaging. It was crafted with elegance and a fierce love for exploration, enough that the player can be trusted to search for secrets on their own, accepting the risk that they might not dig deeper. But I did, and I came away very happy with what I found. So that's Minishoot Adventures, my shiny new game. Thanks for playing, everyone.